Thank you. My name is Joleen Chambers. This is my third Cinder Blocks. This is Cinder Blocks 3. And I really keep coming back because this really is the only place that I feel, well, maybe not the only place, but one of the essential places where I feel the patient voice is really listened to. And I've been speaking for all 3 years on this same subject about failed implanted medical devices, preventably failed. Regina definitely captured our sense of righteous indignation on my brother Stephen's jacket. It's called "Don't Tell Me to Zip It." It depicts his Mayo Clinic elbow replacement implant device that preventably failed at just 4 months. Stephen intended to be here with me at Cinder Blocks today. He lives in Minnesota and I live in Texas. He's 4 years younger than I am. You can't tell it from that. That's the pain. He takes prescribed hydrocodone pain medication. It's controlled in 30-day increments or allotments. A last-minute glitch, and if any of you went to Money Monster, the movie, you'll know that the word glitch is a really disgusting word. He had a glitch in his medication last minute, which required him to stay in Minnesota to pick it up today. Or the alternative was that the lapse could prompt him to go into life-threatening cold turkey withdrawal. Our goal is to eliminate this preventable harm from failed implanted medical devices. For the last 7 years, we have participated with leading consumer groups, the media, hospitals, universities, in giving testimony, federal testimony, and as grants reviewers for government-funded patient outcome research. Not that it's helped us. Compiled information on my blog, which I hope you will go to, serves as a free resource. The logo depicts the ideal of patients engaged in the full product life cycle from initial concept to design to post-market surveillance. The gap, right here, and this banner are indication of the patient harm that we're experiencing. If you're not at the table for these decisions, you are on the menu. Harmed patients are routinely eliminated as anecdotes or branded as vindictive lawsuit chasers or needy malingerers. Patient representatives are not selected by patient groups, but by the FDA itself. Its leadership is replete with conflicts of interest. You can see I trained 3 days at the FDA. They've never called me in for a single advisory panel. The former FDA commissioner faces a lawsuit right now that she hid dangers of a drug, Levaquin. Have you been reading the newspapers? Yeah. To protect investments of her husband. Robert Califf, the new commissioner, nearly lost his nomination because he has really amazing ties to the drug industry. He ran Duke University, their research center, clinical trials, so he has deep trials to drugs, pharma. This man, Dr. Shuren, is the head of CDRH, which is the part of FDA that's in charge of clearing the medical devices. His wife works for Arnold & Porter, a law firm, and she is the partner in charge of preparing companies for FDA referrals and clearances. So their entire household income, he makes $250,000 a year. The commissioners make $150,000. What's with that? And his director, his deputy director, this man is a cardiologist, his name is Dr. William Meisel. He was convicted of soliciting a prostitute, and yet he makes decisions about women's health issues. This is not disclosed to you. Patients are not guinea pigs. They're sacrificial lambs, and the harm is rising. I don't know if you know that implant devices are the #1 expenditure of CMS. This is really important here.
Does that include stents for heart stents and brain stents?
I think they're talking about orthopedic devices are the number one, but that's part of it. Okay, this yellow, okay, that shows you the tested devices that go through PMA process. You see how many of them are tested before they go on the market? And this ends at 2011 because the woman who did this research went off to other jobs because nobody would pay her to do this research anymore. Why would they want to disclose this? That all of these are untested devices. They go through 510K. 5 years ago, the FDA commissioned the Institute of Medicine, which is independent, to study the 510K process. And this study concluded that the current regulation does not guarantee medical device safety and effectiveness. In fact, it's flawed based on its legislative foundation. So we should not be using that untested process to get all of these devices onto the market. Well, the answer by FDA, this Dr. Shuren, was even with this weak device clearance, they're going to continue with it. And they have for 5 years. I don't know if you've seen the bumper sticker. I love it because I'm from Texas. And it says, "I refuse to believe corporations are people until Texas executes one." They are not on par with citizens, okay? This bumper sticker is right. The stated purpose of our government, the reason that we care about our government, is because it is there to protect our individual rights. We are the citizens. Corporations are beholden to their stakeholders, and they do that with a laser focus, okay? The contract with our government right now is fraying, and it gives preference to these corporate entities over individual citizens and the public good. They're going up to our legislators and saying how important jobs are. Did the Nazis do this? If they're doing that kind of harm to the public good, our government should be doing something about it. And they talk about innovation. Well, innovation is only good if it helps us. Okay, just something new is not something that's necessarily helpful. Those with implanted medical devices are a growing cohort. Raise your hand if you don't know somebody with an implant. Okay? The pre-surgery informed consent documents that each patient is required to sign should include the disclosure that there's no product warranty and a product clearance by a federal agency, the FDA, restricts harmed patients from full rights in court. Nobody I know is being told that right now. There's no product warranty, and if you are harmed, you do not have the same rights in civil court that you had before you had this implant. The 3 device jury trials I observed this year ended in a verdict for the harmed patient. One was $1.2 million for a woman in Dallas who had surgical mesh. One was $73 million for one woman in Dallas who had surgical mesh. And one was $500 million for 4 people who had had the Johnson & Johnson pedicle hip. And I sat through all 3 trials as an observer. I was the only observer. Now, these businesses, Johnson & Johnson, Boston Scientific, names that you would know, talk to us about the medical device industry being small mom and pop organizations, but that is not true. Civil verdicts merely imposed fines, and these businesses budget and write off these as the cost of doing business. The harm-for-profit scheme is allowed to continue without admitting error and not changing future behavior. The corporate lawyers always appeal the verdict, and the first plaintiff, this black nurse from Dallas who was awarded the verdict, $1.2 million, died waiting for the first dime. This is what happens to the harmed patient. Independent tracking of patient outcomes will be possible when each device has a unique device identifier. One of the first things I said 7 years ago, and they're starting, hopefully, to implement that. But what we also need is a separate code that relates to the first code of the device if it has to be a revised surgery, so that CMS starts learning what are the devices that are problematic much earlier than we are right now. Because right now, surgeons rarely report device failure to the FDA. They're only legally required to report if there's a fatality. Early, and oftentimes they don't know their patient has died. Early indicators of device problems will greatly reduce patient harm. Like Johnson & Johnson, you know their name. This giant corporation has halo products like Band-Aids to gain your trust. But did you know that Johnson & Johnson also produces baby shampoo that contains a toxic ingredient banned in Europe? I think they've only recently removed that formaldehyde. It's been at least 20 years in Europe that they didn't allow it. They took it out in Europe and left it on here in the United States. The baby powder right now is in the news because it's suspected of causing ovarian cancer. There have been at least 2 women who have recently had large verdicts for that. And a power horse-later, have you been reading Human Nurchasm? He's a wonderful patient advocate whose wife, Amy Reed, got sarcoma. They used a power horse-later and a hysterectomy, and it spread the cancer that's hidden. I mean, there's no way of knowing that the cancer is there. Why are they using power horse-later? No other surgeons use power horse-laters, but these gynecologists. And it's a 510K. Oh, and they're fighting it like crazy. But I think Johnson & Johnson took theirs off the market. But there are other manufacturers of these things. A popular metal-on-metal hip, right here is the Pinnacle hip, is the one that's composed of toxic metals. Surgeons began using this petroleum-based mesh product off-label in pelvic reconstruction surgery to treat conditions resulting from pregnancy, childbirth, and aging. It's a fairly common condition, but a very unique kind of treatment for this. And once they put in this mesh, 30% of these implants have required revision surgery. There are right now, in Charleston, West Virginia, 100,000 harmed women waiting for justice. They're buried in Charleston, West Virginia. Our federal government is doing this to us, and our FDA is allowing it. Why we don't have the rights to go to our state courts? We have to go to federal court for this and have a multi-district litigation, and these companies are not being held accountable for what they do. Chemical products such as fertilizer that alter cellular life are the core business of Bayer, which is in the news for wanting to buy Monsanto. Let's put this all together. It's a giant global German corporation famous for baby aspirin, Bayer aspirin. You gotta love it. It's a sweet product, right? Well, that's just 1% of its market. That's their Halo product. And this decaying sign was left behind at Mount Washington. I don't know if anybody that's local here recognizes that, when they abruptly moved to California. That's how much they care about us. Bayer Essure, their product, it's a permanent contraceptive. This is the fallopian tube that they put it in. It's primarily metal with petroleum and chemical elements. The devices have migrated. They just move, go wherever they want to. Puncture internal organs, cause severe chronic pain, systemic toxic nickel metal allergy. The product marketers promise a non-surgical procedure because it's brought in and cathetered this way. So you do not have to have surgery to put it in. But the revision surgery, should you harm a person, requires a full surgical hysterectomy. That's what the marketers promise you you're not going to have. The surgery. These women have to go through this, and these are young women who are raising their children who have to go through something that traumatic, and it's not covered. Pope Francis's visit to DC last fall overshadowed an important public meeting at the remote FDA compound in Silver Spring, Maryland. How is it that 1/5 of our economy, the FDA, gets to be way out in Silver Spring, Maryland, where we cannot access it? All these harmed people have to spend extra money to get out there. And when this was what greeted them that day. Who do they think they're protecting themselves from? Okay? The 28,000 harmed women on eSure Problems Facebook page had to crowdfund to pay travel costs for their representatives to attend this meeting. And they didn't really change anything. A 2014 RAND study states that perverse incentives lead inventors and investors in the opposite direction of patient safety. Currently, large profits are most often available from creating increasingly expensive products that boost spending, whether or not they substantially improve health.
Joleen, can I?
Yes.
This isn't an implanted device, but it's a medical device, the ECT or shock treatment machines. Yes, they are still doing shock treatment, and it has a really good record of causing permanent cognitive impairments for a large percentage of people. And so people are almost never given informed consent before they sign up for ECT. It's almost all elderly women. And,
Do they follow the patient outcomes?
And the research on patient outcomes shows that it's worse than placebo, or worse than sham ECT, which is, the placebo control.
Yeah, it's usually proprietary research. I'm surprised that it shows anything negative.
And the FDA, in 2011, the patient advocates won a battle to get it banned, and the FDA would not enforce it. And just recently, this is still pending, so I'm telling you, the FDA said, oh, we're going to redecide this again. And they won't even allow the patients to come to the hearing.
Exactly. We're not there. Okay, and if they ever say that I'm a patient representative for FDA, ask them how they ever used me. They never have. Representative Mike Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, if any of you know him, he's great. He introduced this bipartisan bill, H.R. 3290, the E-Free Act, that will revoke the Bayer eSure product clearance and allow these harmed women to sue. Because with the PMA, remember the yellow part? It actually was tested, but it was a fraudulent test, these women say. They're getting pregnant and they're having all kinds of issues, and the people that had trouble during the clinical trial weren't included in the report of the clinical trial. So that's what we have to do, because our FDA isn't working. We have to go up to Congress and just say, okay, we'll revoke this clearance. So please support this E-Free Act and ask your representatives to support it. Now, to prevent harm, I just want to repeat this for you. What we're asking for is a specific code for each device implant. Sort of like you go to the grocery store and everything has their QR code. That's what each device needs. And then it has to have a matching code for revision surgery, so we can look back through records, independent records, to see how many of these devices are lasting for how long. And then have these companies declare a pre-established threshold of device failure, 1%, 3%, whatever it is, that will automatically trigger notification of patients and a recall of that device. Don't put the onus on each individual harmed patient to go through justice, our justice system, because justice is too little and too late. So now you know why safe and effective medical devices are so important to you, to your wallet, to your family, to your community. The unique sign-off that I receive every month in my newsletters from Patient Safety America says, be well or be careful. Its founder, John T. James, is a leading patient advocate whose study recently revealed, and this is also currently in the newspapers, that medical error right now is the #3 cause of death in the United States. So, please be well or be careful. Thank you.